housemoney.media.
Welcome to Real Estate Maximalist. I'm your host, Alan Corey, the author of $1 Million by 30 and House Fire, Financial Independence and Retire Early. I teach the House Fire method for you to retire early through real estate. I'm also a top agent with the real estate team, the Alan Corey team in Atlanta, and I've been investing for over 22 years, but I find it much easier to just say I'm a real estate maximalist. Today's episode is actually a recording of Twitter Spaces that I did, hosted by Jack Bennett at Jack Ghostwriter on Twitter. He put me on a panel with Sam Primm of Faster Freedom. If you don't know Sam, he's an investor who went from $0 to $42 million in real estate investments in just 7 years without using any of his own money. I bet he used my broke method because that's the only way to do it. Anyway, we both share on this panel how we got started, the mistakes we've made, and most importantly, how we were able to acquire our real estate portfolios using other people's money. So tune in and you'll hear our thoughts on multifamily versus single family, how we determine deals, investing while broke, and much, much more. Jack, take it away.
So first of all, thank you so much for coming on, Alan. I really appreciate it. Can you guys both, let's start with Alan and then we'll go to Sam. Can you guys both talk to me about kind of your real estate journeys and how you got into real estate? Alan, we'll start with you and then we'll go to Sam. How did you get into real estate and how's it helped develop your financial freedom?
Thanks for having me, Jack, and nice to meet you, Sam. Glad to be here. I've been in real estate for over 23 years, so more than half my life. And it started because I thought I was funny and wanted to be a stand-up comedian in New York City. I was living in the Spanish Harlem projects, working a job, tech support job for $50,000 a year. And I was never going to be able to focus on comedy full time with a day job that was 9 to 5. And then I was in the club till 3 o'clock every morning. So I devoured every single real estate book I could. Decided that was going to be my path out to replace my day job so that I could do comedy full time. And then I realized that I liked comedy better. I was better at it. It paid better. And I said, well, let me just keep my day job and just go all in on real estate. And I haven't looked back. And now, I've been doing this for, like I said, 2 decades. And I have a 350 door portfolio. And it all started with $10,000. And a dream to be full-time creative, and now I'm creative within real estate. So that's sort of my story in a nutshell.
Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, awesome. Nice to meet you as well, Alan. Yeah, that's pretty cool story. My story is not as cool. I wasn't a stand-up comedian. I'm definitely not that funny. That's for sure. Just ask my wife. But I had a pretty normal path. Not quite like the New York City comedian or like the rags to riches type story. I was in school, went to college, got a job outside of college and was just kind of working the W-2 grind, cog in the wheel type of thing. Wasn't quite enough for me. So then I started investing in real estate on the side in 2014 timeframe, slowly kind of dipped my toe in the waters there and then started to pick up some pace. And by 2018, I quit my job and went full-time into real estate and haven't looked back since then. And now we're sitting at 270 rental units with some self-storage facilities and commercial buildings in there as well. And just looking to grow this brand online and continue to buy real estate. I also have a house flipping company here in St. Louis that we buy and sell about 300 houses a year, majority wholesale, but we do fix and flip as well. So I think between you and I, Alan, I think we can hopefully give some good information and answer any questions about pretty much probably anything in the real estate space. We don't have to be cornholed into one part of it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's a great story, Sam. I want to ask both of you about what it was like going into your first deal, right? When I look at the world today and I look at the real estate world today, fear is something that really resonates across people. You see a lot of buzzwords in the news, high interest rates, house prices falling, stuff like that. I want to kind of get first of all, when did you buy your first piece of real estate? When did your journey begin? And what kind of fears did you have going into it that maybe are misconceptions because of, I guess, egregious media titles per se? Let's go to Sam first and then we'll flip it to Alan.
Yeah, so I bought my first one in 2014. When I started, it was a rental. I actually bought it as a flip, and then ended up turning it into a rental. And I was nervous, but I wasn't like crazy nervous. I Social media and the fear mongering and everything wasn't quite what it is today. 2014, 2015, '08 was in the rear view enough that people weren't like thinking that real estate's a horrible investment anymore, but it hadn't picked up enough where everybody was on the bandwagon. So I kind of got in at a pretty good time. And I was nervous about making money and making profit, but I wasn't, maybe it was naive, but I was like, and it ended up happening. But I was like, if I buy this at a discount and do some of the work myself, worst case scenario, I sell it and don't profit as much, or worst case scenario, I sell it and lose a couple grand. It's not like if you're buying a single family house that's in decent shape and you did somewhat due diligence, it's not like you're gonna lose $150,000. Shit, the thing was worth 125. So to me, worst case scenario was losing a few grand. But best case scenario was making 40 grand on a rehab, and ended up keeping it as a rental. So it just kind of went to show that you buy a property right, you have multiple strategies, multiple exits you can do, multiple things you can do to plug in to make it so it's not, not a complete loss. You have a lot more control over it than on the other investments. So that's kind of my first story, and then kind of scale from there. But I'm interested to see Alan, especially because he's been around longer and through a few more market changes than I have.
I appreciate it, Sam. That's a nice way of saying I'm an old guy. Yeah, but I agree. I'm 45, so I got started. Jack, you said fear. I got started right after 9/11 on 2001. Everyone was saying it's crazy to buy New York, get out of New York City. No one was buying real estate after 9/11, and so, but that I had $10,000, is the most money I've ever had, and I was like, I'm broke and I'm poor. If this goes well, I can maybe really change my life. But if it doesn't go well, I'll be broke and poor. So I felt like I had nothing to lose. Like I'm already broke and poor. Let me at least try to bet on myself. Let me try to see if everything I'm reading in these books pan out. And so I bought a 1-bedroom condo for $99,000. It was the only property I could find. It was actually listed for 110. It was the cheapest property I could find. After 9/11, I was like, I got 10% down payment on an FHA loan. Let me just try to get this. And they, no other offers. It was on the market for like 2 months before they accepted my offer finally. And I bought it, and I hung a very heavy curtain across the living room and rented it out to a friend of mine, which covered my mortgage payment. This was house hacking before people called it house hacking. It just made sense to me. And once I sort of saw that I can live for free, I just set a path, buying one property a year for 5 years. And, I tell everyone now, just have that goal. And in 5 years, you'll probably be able to leave your day job. The problem with me is I developed an addiction, and I just never quit buying.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. I know that both of you, I believe, I know Sam for sure, but I know you, Alan, as well. I believe reading into you are both of the but belief, because you have done it, that you can buy a rental property with little to potentially $0. Can you guys kind of take me through the processes that you use? I'm not sure if it would be exactly the same. I'm sure there's a couple nuanced differences. So we'll go Alan first, then Sam. How is that possible for the modern day person, especially with high interest rates?
Yeah, sure. So I teach something. I have a course called the Broke Method to Real Estate Investing, and Broke is anagram. I always say that it's an acronym, BROKE. So B is big deal flow, meaning that if you have great deals that make a lot of money, it'll attract other people's money to invest in your deal. Or reputational pull. If people know that you're a buyer of a certain product, reputation will bring in organic leads for that big deal pull, or organic partners and money. O is ongoing outreach. So doing things like this, Twitter Spaces, telling people what you do, what you're looking for, connecting. It doesn't take any money to network, but so I always push for that ongoing outreach. And then K is knuckle up ability. So if you've got money in the deal and you're the rich guy, you don't need to get sweaty. You don't need to put in the sweat equity and hard work. But if you're the guy without any money, everything's going to roll your way when things get messy, when the jobs no one wants to do. So you got to have that knuckle up ability to get involved in deals, get a slice of a pie without, what are you going to, that's how you're going to earn your equity, sweat equity. And then E is execution, excitement. What I mean by that is, people will never act. They'll look at all the deals, or they don't get excited about the deal. And you can probably hear me, I get really passionate when I talk about real estate, and that attracts opportunity, that attracts money, that attracts partners. And you just have to have that execution excitement. Hey, I want to find a deal today. I want to reach out to 10 people today. I want to see, tell people I'm looking for this, for a reputational pull. I'll volunteer to do XYZ that no one else wants to do. Just that excitement and that energy is going to be necessary to just be super optimistic and get stuff done. So put all those things together. That's the broke method to real estate investing. And, I think similar to Sam, we both bought a lot of property without other people's money. I would say majority of my holdings are with other people's money, not a whole lot of my money, but I do all those 5 pillars of the broke method to make up for it.
Yeah, I'll kind of piggyback off that and just kind of take it a similar but different angle, maybe a little bit more broad of an angle. But yeah, I own, my tagline that just seems to connect with people is, I own $42 million worth of real estate and haven't used a dime of my own money. And, there's different strategies like creative financing or the BRRRR method, and we can dig into those if we want. But I think in general, just people understanding the concept that you can borrow money from other people to buy an asset. And as long as that asset produces cash and you're taking care of it, a bank will even hop on board and let you borrow money from them. So you can kind of get fancy with the footwork and move money around and borrow money from a private lender, a hard money lender, lines of credit you have, somebody's self-directed IRA. There's a million different places to get a chunk of cash to buy an asset that's distressed and fix it up. And then at that point, you have a fixed up asset. When I say that, usually it's a single family house is the easiest example, but you can do that with multi and storage and all the things. But you're using somebody else's money to buy a distressed asset, and you're adding value and equity by fixing it up and making it nice. And once you have a fixed up nice asset, get it rented. And at that point, banks will fight over you to lend you money on that property. So you just get a new loan from the bank, and then you use that loan to pay off the original loan, however you borrowed it to buy that distressed asset. And now you owe the bank money, but it's the bank and it's a mortgage and it's paid over 20, 25, 30 years. It's a very small monthly payment compared to your initial loan. And at that point, your rent should be enough, hopefully, to cover cash flow or to cover, all expenses plus cash flow on top of it. So it's a way to, buy distressed assets without having to put 20% down like most people think. You have to put 20% down on a distressed or fixed up property. That 20% down, banks don't care about you putting 20% down on a house. They don't give a crap about that cash. What they want is that equity. They don't want to own the property. They don't want to be property owners. So what they do is they just want to have enough equity in there so they're in a safe position where they're not going to have to take back the property. And you can get that by giving them cash. You can get that by giving them equity. And what I've done is gave them equity and been able to make it work with single families, multis, and storage along the way. So it's just a different way to look at it. You're kind of backing into that 20% down that most people are familiar with when it comes to owning a long-term asset. But just a creative way to do it if you don't have enough money to put 20% down on one house or a ton of houses. It's the only way that most of us can scale if we don't come from money.
Yeah, that's a great point. I want to quickly, because you touched on Sam, you talked about the BRRRR method. Can you do a little bit of a more of a deep dive into what that is? I know the acronym, but can you kind of explain to the people how that actually works and how it can be successful?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll try to keep it. It's a pretty simple method once you understand it. But if this is the first time you're hearing it, it does kind of maybe scratch your head, but make you scratch your head a little bit. So I'll try to keep it simple with simple math and explain it. So in general, what you do is the BRRRR stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and scale. That's the acronym. It's not as cool as broke, but it's close, Alan. I like your broke acronym. But BRRRR, what you do is you buy a distressed asset using somebody else's money. So a single family rental property, let's say, you buy one that's distressed, meaning it needs work using somebody else's money. So private money lender, hard money lender, there's a ton of places to go. So you're borrowing using somebody else's cash to buy and fix up the property. So let's say you bought a single family rental house for $100,000 that was distressed. And let's say it needs $50,000 worth of repairs. So then you borrow, $150,000 from those sources I just mentioned. So You have $150,000 into this property that's fixed up and ready to go. You got to pay that person back, obviously. So what you do is you get the property rented. Now that the property is fixed up, you get it rented, and good tenants love freshly rehabbed properties, a property that's just been fixed up. Good tenants find places that they want to live, not have to live. So you'll have your pick of really good tenants if you have a nice property. So then you get it rented, and then it starts to collect rent, and then you take it to a small local bank. And this is where it gets a little bit more confusing, because at this point you just borrowed money to fix up a house and you got it rented. But what a bank will do is, a small local bank, not your big banks, not your box banks, they'll do up to an 80% cash out refinancing, meaning they'll appraise the property, and whatever the property's worth, they'll give you a loan for 80% of that. So this example, you bought it distressed, you added equity by fixing it up and making it nice, and this property appraised for 200 grand. So the bank will write you a check for 80% of that, and 80% of 200 grand is 160 grand. So you take that $160,000 check and you pay back your initial lenders, their 150 grand plus interest. That 10 grand should be enough to cover that, because this is a 4-month process. And then now you owe the bank $160,000, but it's a mortgage and it's a small payment. Even with a little bit higher interest rates, it's still a small payment. That rent you've been collecting, well, that's going to pay the mortgage and taxes and insurance and all the holding costs. And then hopefully you're cash flowing a few $100 a month. Nothing sexy, but a few $100 a month cash flow positive with an asset that you didn't use any of your own money to buy. The only person you owe is the bank, and the renter's paying it for you. So, the bank pays the private money lender, and then the renter pays the bank, and all the while you get to own that asset. And while one of them might not change your life, it probably could. Do it 10 times and you're going to become a multimillionaire sooner than you think. You do it 25 times and you're financially free. So of course it requires work and effort and energy, and it's not easy. But it's pretty simple. And once you start to do it, you can do like I've done it 260 times, you can really start to build wealth, because over time the property goes up in value and the mortgage gets paid down by the tenant, and you're not doing anything except sitting there getting wealthy every single day. So that's that. I'll break it down just to show you the power of it. I make about $9,000 a day with my assets going up in value, with the mortgages getting paid down by the tenant, that equity that's created, and cash flow that's tax-free from depreciation. So it can add up to a lot over time.
Yeah, that's a really, really great in-depth explanation. Alan, I want to kind of ask you, and this kind of goes to CYGD's question. When you invest in real estate, are you looking for a property that's going to increase in value substantially? Are you looking for something that's going to cash flow you heavily today? Are you looking in places maybe like Texas or Florida or other states where you think the value is going to increase dramatically over the next few years? Kind of what exactly do you look for in a good property? And also to CYGD's question, will you buy a property that is anything under a 10% cap rate?
So my approach is a little bit different. Another acronym for you. I created the house fire approach. FIRE stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. And so what I do is I try to have houses pay for every single bill in my life. So I created a spreadsheet, put down my internet bill, gas bill, utility bill, car note, student loan payments, and then there's the FIRE movement. There's a bunch of math about, hey, if you get 25 times that amount is saved up in stocks and you withdraw 4% a year, then you can retire because all your bills are paid for. So a real quick example is like an internet bill is $150 a month, internet and phone combined maybe. And that's not a bill that I can buy in bulk or pay off ever. Like it's going to follow me around forever. Multiply that by 12, that's $1,800 a year. All the mathematicians out there said get 25 times that in stocks. So that's $45,000 in your stock account, and you withdraw 4% every single year. That'll always cover that $1,800 a year cell phone bill, and you're covered, assuming that the cell phone bill never goes up in value or good charge, doesn't go up in price. Now, real estate, we all know you only need 20% down. If you go buy a $100,000 house, you put $20,000 down, that cash flow is $150. So instead of saving $45,000 in stocks, you can save less than half of that, $20,000, buy a $100,000 house, the cash flow is $150, and then that house pays for my phone bill for the rest of my life. And then I went to the next bill in my life and bought a house that cash flows and covers that bill. And I went through all my bills, and so that I can be financially independent, retire early through houses. And what happens now is that I'm not on a fixed income retirement like I would be if a stock portfolio or a pension or something that's, an annuity that's the same every month and every year, because my houses go up in value every single year. My rent that I charge go up in value every single year. And so I live more and more extravagant in each year because of this method, because I'm making more money in early retirement. So that's how I approach things. I'm not the guy who's going to break down the 10%, cash and cash return. I do that when I'm doing more of the syndications and apartment buildings. But, my first, 50 single family homes that I bought, this was the approach that I took. And really, it kept me focused. And all I had to do is save up $10,000 to $20,000 chunks at a time and eliminate each bill. And that's what I preach in my book, also called House Fire as well.
Yeah, that's a really good way to, I guess, formulate easily what I guess the goal is, and legitimately have a number of how many houses you need to buy, what value, how much cash flow you need, et cetera, et cetera. Sam, I kind of want to ask you, you talked about a couple of things, but let's go to, you discussed getting private lending for the BRRRR method, okay? Can you describe what that is? Who is a private lender? Like, is it, I'm just going to leave it open. Who is that?
Yeah, for sure. I'll piggyback off of one thing Alan said, and then I'll get into private lenders, because this is, you find one private lender and your whole world can change. A lot of people do talk about cap rate with single family rentals, and there's nothing wrong with that. But technically cap rate is reserved for like multifamily and commercial properties. It's a way to value them. Single family rental are valued on the comparable houses in their area. So I don't use cap rate for single family rentals because it's just an income number, I guess. It's not really a value number. So that's just a little bit different. It's more on like IRR, but then I don't use any money on it. So I don't have any of those formulas either. I just try to make sure I cash flow after every expense, $250 a month per door. That's kind of my way to measure it, because if I zero my own dollars, the rate of return is either zero or infinite. So anyways, that just wanted to piggyback off that and agree with Alan. And then as far as the private lender, so I'll explain who they are and then what they do quickly, not to take over take too long to explain it. But, private lenders, they're just normal working people that have usually worked maybe, they're usually in their 40s or 50s or 60s. They're just normal. They're just normal working class people. They're not anybody that is, has millions and millions of dollars in their bank account. They're not like multimillionaires. They're not a rich uncle. They're not the mob. It's just somebody, a friend of a friend or an acquaintance or somebody that has a little bit of extra money, 50 grand, 75 grand, 150 grand, that they're willing to either pull out of the stock market, self-direct their own, IRA, or borrow against their 401k, or they just have the money in the bank and they're willing to invest in you specifically in real estate and backed by real estate. You're probably going to personally guarantee it. They're going to be listed on the insurance policy. So they're very, very protected, but it's just, like Alan said earlier, you're talking about it passionately in conversations at bars with buddies, at meetings, at work. Eventually somebody's going to, catch on to that passion and want to invest in you in real estate. And, just getting one of them can really change your life, because it allows you to put cash offers on properties with no contingencies and no really anything holding you back. You can, have them approve to give you 150 grand and you can go buy whatever you want underneath that. You don't have to go through an approval process, credit score check, all those things that you might have to with other lenders. So it's basically just an alternative diversification play for somebody that just has a little bit of extra money. It's not what most people think, a rich parent or rich uncle. That's usually never the case.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I want to ask both of you, we'll start with Alan and then we'll flip to Sam. Where do you guys own your real estate, and where are you looking to buy for the future?
Yeah, sure. And I just want to say, everything Sam said, I also agree with too. So there's a million ways to make $1 million in real estate. Pick a method, a strategy that works for you and stick to it. But it's places like this where you get exposed to many different ideas and paths forward. To answer your question, I'm based in Atlanta now, and so most of my holdings are in the Southeast. I've got a big portfolio in Atlanta and Huntsville, Alabama. it doesn't mean I'm limited to here. That's just where I have the biggest networks and the most opportunities have presented itself. So I'm fairly concentrated here, and I'm within a 2 hours drive to everything. I've not always been there because when I lived in New York, it can only scale so much with low income, and so I was buying properties out of state and doing long distance sort of things. So I think it really depends where you are in your life, how much money you have, where your network is, what teams you can build locally or long distance to kind of get you started in real estate. So I don't want anyone to just take my answers as there's only one way to do this. But yeah, for now, I'm only investing in the multifamily space. Typically 20 units or more in the Southeast is sort of the, the bucket list, the buy bucket, I should say.
Yeah, so everything I own is in St. Louis. All my assets, as well as my flipping company and the houses that we don't own, that we flip and sell or wholesale. So I always kind of tell people everybody's path's different, but in general, I think that if possible, investing where you live is the best first option. Now, that doesn't have to be the case, and where you live might not work for every investing strategy, but St. Louis is a very good market for rentals. It's a pretty good market for flipping and wholesaling, so that's where I'm at. I think once I expand and kind of go the syndication route, I've kind of been pushing that off for a while, but once I go that route, I'll probably start to invest in the south east part of the United States. But I think it's best to invest where you live. It just, you kind of have like almost insider like trading information. Like there's these hedge funds and these out of state buyers and out of town buyers. And if you live there or, grew up there, you kind of know which areas are trending. And, the housing market is so big that there's no like data that can predict everything. So you kind of know more than the people that are just kind of doing it blind. So you kind of have a leg up on them. So that's why I think potentially in your backyard. But if you live in New York or LA, you're not going to be able to buy single family rentals that cash flow. So that's that's not, it doesn't work in that area. And I have over 1,000 students, and probably 500 of them live in like California or Hawaii or Washington or New York, and they're investing virtually. So you can invest in other markets. So if you want to buy rentals, single family rentals with the BRRRRs, then you probably have to pick the Midwest or the Southeast. If you don't live there, well then do it virtually. But if you do live there, then I would suggest doing it in your backyard if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. CYGD, DM Alan or Sam personally, we're not getting into full-on business deals in the middle of a space. Just DM them personally. I'm sure they'd love to answer you privately. Alan, I want to ask you a little bit about your book, $1,000,000 by 30, or your multiple books, $1,000,000 by 30 and House of Fire. What made you say, I want to write a book? And kind of what has the response been to the books, and how do you kind of like it?
Well, I'll tell you this, man. The books are like the best business card you could possibly have. It opens doors, it increases your networking opportunity, and all that. I mean, when I moved to New York, I didn't necessarily want to be a stand-up comedian. I wanted to be a comedy writer. So I was always a writer first, and it actually came about because I had a website at the time, and I just said on it, like, on my bio, Alan's working on a book about real estate investing. And I wasn't actually, it was just more of a reminder that, hey, I want to get around to doing that one day. And through a crazy series of events, the first flip I ever did, it was purchased by Barbara Corcoran from Shark Tank. And that got on the cover of New York Times. And at the same time, reality TV was really kind of taking off. And back then, before social media, they would cast all the reality TV participants. The guys would be casted from the comedy clubs, and the girls would be casted from the modeling agencies. So I got on a couple of reality TV shows at the same time. So I was getting all this sort of press for real estate, some for reality TV. And then I had book publishers come across my website, reaching out, asking me to, how's that book coming? Hey, can we write, publish your book for you? And then I was like, I got to get around to doing it. And, 6 months later, I had a book deal, and it just sort of went from there. And my goal was, and my goal always is to have the funniest real estate investing books out there, or very entertaining personal finance books out there, something different, something that maybe if you're not interested in reading books about this subject because they're usually textbook and very droll. I wanted to give another option, and so that's where I'm coming from. And I enjoy writing; it's fun, and I wouldn't say it's not something that's gonna I'm gonna retire off my book sales, but it's led to meeting so many people, and I'm getting letters every single day from people who read my book 10 years ago saying how much it changed their life, and that's more rewarding than making $1 million on a real estate deal.
That's fantastic, man. I'm sure your books are phenomenal. By the way, for anybody who joined us a little bit late, if you have a question, feel free to send it down in the chat and we'll get right to them. Sam, I want to ask you, I'm just scrolling through your profile right now, and I see that you have a giveaway going for people where you're going to fly two people and a guest of theirs out to meet with your team for 2 days, all expenses paid. Can you kind of talk about that opportunity? Because I think that's something that a lot of people would love to do, to meet somebody kind of your caliber. Can you kind of talk about that giveaway a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. And actually, Dean, who's on here listening, he won. He won it last time I did it. So it's just a way to promote my podcast and a way to have fun with some people from around the country and to grow the brand a little bit. So I started a podcast about 6 months ago. When we launched it, we did the giveaway, and now we're doing it again. But basically, it's you can just DM me here on Instagram. I can send you the link, or the link might be on here on this page. I can check. But basically, what I'm doing is going to fly a couple people and their friends from around the country, wherever they are. Last time it was Baltimore and Ohio, I believe. But wherever you're from, I'm going to fly you and a buddy out, and then hang out in my office for a couple of days, attend the meetings. We'll probably go to Top Golf or Cardinals game if they're in town when we do it, and then just hang out and have fun and watch us shoot a podcast episode, and just a way to interact and give back a little bit, and to a way to grow the brand as well. So it's something that we don't like offer it. It's not like something you can pay to come do. If we did charge people, it'd probably be quite a bit of money to pay for their flight and hotel and food, as well as our time. But it's just something that I'm probably going to do about once a year, and it's a really fun way to just kind of get a real pulse of how people are seeing my stuff and how people are feeling about real estate that want to get involved. So it was a really fun thing, and I know Dean was awesome when he came in town, and they ended up shipping us a bunch of stuff from Baltimore to try to get us to root for the Ravens. But I'm not a Ravens fan, Dean. Deal with it.
That's fantastic. Yeah, for anybody interested, it's on Sam's profile, published February 7th. And I believe it says it runs on until the end of the week. So still a little bit of time. Anyway, I wanted to flip back to business a little bit and talk about Sam. I know you from Instagram, and you always talk about small banks versus big banks. So I want to ask you kind of what's the material difference and why do you prefer small banks? And then Alan, I want to go to you and ask what kind of banks do you take mortgages from? And do you see any advantages or disadvantages, either contrary or similar to Sam?
Yeah, so I deal with small local banks, and mainly in the single family space, but also in the smaller apartment space, because these small local banks have so much flexibility with what they can and cannot do. If I were to take a $200,000 single family rental to Bank of America and ask them to do cash out refinance, they either wouldn't understand me or they would laugh me out of the building. So it's kind of your only option if you're wanting to invest in single family rentals and grow and scale and do commercial loans. These small local banks, they're not like Bank of America, your big box banks. They don't have, trillions of dollars of depository accounts in and out of their bank every day. They don't have that luxury. They have a small amount of depository accounts. So what they do is they end up holding the notes in house. So they do a loan for me at 6% on a rental property. They are holding that mortgage in house, meaning that they are servicing it, that they hold the debt, and they are making a little bit of spread every single month between the interest they're charging me and the interest rate they're borrowing from the government. These big Rocket Mortgage, Bank of America, as well as Fargo, these big banks, they sell on the secondary market to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So they sell to a government-backed institution, the secondary market. And in order to do that, you have to cross a ton of I's, cross a lot of T's. You have to have seasoning periods and all these rules and regulations that most people are fine to do with on their normal, house that they're living in and going to be their residential address. So it's more of comes out of necessity than anything else. But these small local banks are usually like a business person kind of being a banker. So they understand investors, they have flexibility, they can do crazy shit that you could never do at a big box banks because they're the ones making decisions and they're the ones holding the debt. So it's kind of more of a necessity. And then when you get into the bigger stuff that Alan, I'm sure, going to talk about, you can go more institutional banks and Fannie or Freddie money type of thing for some big mortgages on apartments and things like that. But as far as like the single family one-offs, your really only option is going to be small local banks or small credit or local credit unions.
Well, Sam, speaking the truth here, and Sam, I'm going to do my best to win those tickets to St. Louis. So maybe we'll be meeting soon. That's a great program you got going. But yes, I'm all for the local banks, the community banks. Actually, by law, they have to lend out a certain amount of dollars within a certain radius of their branch. So they're very invested in the local community. And, if you go walk into one of those big banks, they can only do what the computer lets them to do. But in a community bank, it's like, well, let me go ask the owner of the bank, or let me go ask the investors, investor bank, and they can get really creative. And it's really can be wild, wild west financing. Like, hey, if we do X, Y, and Z, then we can give it to you when everyone else just give you a no with no options on how to move forward. I also like a local mortgage broker. So I use one here that's local in Atlanta. Everyone probably has one that's local to your city who has deep connections everywhere. And if that mortgage broker is a real estate investor themselves, they know what you want. They know how to add the depreciation back into your tax returns. They know how to craft the loan to get it approved as an investment mortgage. And I always a lot of people try to hide things from their mortgage lender, and that always backfires. I like to give them everything, the full story, and then let them do their expertise and go find a way to give me money. Because you guys got to remember, banks are in the business of getting you money. They're not in the business of saying no to you. They're invested of giving you money. That's legitimately why they exist. So be an open book and tell them what your goals are. And the good ones are going to do everything possible to help you achieve your goals. Because if they make you successful, they're going to make themselves successful. But you're going to get more of that hands-on customer service from a local bank, credit union, and I'm not talking like a big national chain. It's something that's only found in your city or your state. Usually gives the best results.
That's fantastic. I want to ask you guys a little bit about some failures, I guess. Maybe early on in your journey, or maybe some deals that went a little bit awry, where you potentially lost some money. We'll go Alan, then Sam. Can you guys talk maybe about a deal that didn't work out? Because there are certainly risks associated with real estate. And I want to ask, in hindsight, what could you have done better? What could have changed? What was the issue? Alan, we'll go first to you, and then we'll flip to Sam.
Yeah, sure. Believe it or not, you can go broke buying good deals. For a couple of years, I was doing new construction. I would buy lots here in Atlanta for about $300K, teardowns, put about $500,000 into building a house and sell them for $1 million. And so every time I saw a lot for 300, I'd scoop it up. Lot 300, scoop it up. Lot 300, scoop it up. And what had happened, and I was using private and hard money for most of these deals, which it's expensive money to borrow, and it's short term and expensive. But when we had so many projects going on, my partner, who was the builder and the GC, you can only build so many houses at one time. And so what happened is, we would just have a lot that was sitting there paying, expensive money on, and we weren't working on it. It was just torn down because we were going to finish 3 other homes before we got to it. And then, a project, we'd usually have a 9-month turnaround, and then just one property ended up being, a year and a half before we got around to it. And at the end of the day, the hard money person made a ton of money. We lost $75,000 on it, and the only person that got rich was the hard money. Thankfully, our other deals kind of made up for it, but I mean, that was an expensive lesson. That really know how much, don't bite more than you can chew, kind of thing. And I just saw dollar signs in every single teardown lot, so I wanted to acquire them all without really thinking that how we're going to scale the the building side of things, not just the acquisition side of things. So I think if you talk to any real estate investor, no one has 100% success rate or 1,000% batting average. And I always look at it like, sure, I got a $75,000 lesson that'll never happen again, and that's worth something. A lot of people get a $75,000 lesson and then leave the business, and I'm like, man, that's like getting a master's degree in real estate and not using it. So I'm not worried about losing money here and there. It'll happen, but if you do enough deals, you stay in the business long enough, it's almost impossible not to succeed. The ones that don't succeed, they just quit too early.
Yeah, I've had plenty of instances where I've lost money and screwed up. And I'll go over a couple of them quickly, but I just want to agree with what Alan was saying. In general, you're gonna make mistakes if you're pushing yourself in anything, and this is no different. People that don't make mistakes are people that usually don't make it. The people that make mistakes are the ones that actually end up making it and making it big. So I've screwed up plenty. It's usually when you are moving too fast at 1,000,000 miles an hour, trying to do too many things, and you overlook something that is super simple and that you should have been like, duh. Or when you kind of let emotion get involved, and you either let your pride get in the way or vanity get in the way, or just trying to be a big dog when you're not a big dog, and you just make bad decisions. There's the dotted the I's and cross the T ones. With me, we did a self-storage development. We bought some self-storage facilities, and we built some next to it, and built a couple buildings that went up well. So last minute, we decided to throw a third building up, and I did not get builder's risk insurance on that building, and it blew over a couple times. Yes, that's right. I said a couple. It ended up costing us about 150 grand in wasted materials and labor. Fortunately, I'm in that development for about 900,000, and it's worth about 1.6. So there's enough equity in there to make up the difference. Even making a $150,000 mistake, if you buy right and stick to the fundamentals, you can still sometimes make it work in real estate. Not always. And then the other ones were just trying to do too much too fast. I know at the beginning of my career, probably had 3 or 4 rentals. I bought a package of 3 of them, and 2 of them were a bad deal. One of them was a good deal. I knew that going in, and ended up rehabbing them all, and the 2 ones that were in rougher areas and not as good deals ended up appraising less than I bought them for before I even fixed them up. So I was going to be out of pocket about 20 grand that I didn't have. So fortunately, I ended up selling the one good deal, and then kind of taking some collateral equity out of my other 2 rentals, and making sure I didn't have to come out of pocket on it. So they're both just kind of easy, quick examples of me screwing up, being dumb, but also the power of real estate. You can screw up and still make money. And like Alan said, you can buy good deals and screw up. But the other side of it, you can screw up and still do okay, just because real estate is so powerful and it provides so much flexibility and movement and agility.
Yeah, I really would like that. I think that's one of the things that makes real estate really attractive to a lot of people is, I guess, that flexibility. Even when you screw up. And I remember, Sam, we were talking a few weeks ago on a call, and we were discussing how with real estate, the advantage compared to stocks is when you own your real estate, you get to control everything, right? If you own Apple or you own another company, you're at the mercy of people who are making decisions about how your money goes up and down on a daily basis. And with real estate, you have full control. I want to ask you, Sam, just because we're on the topic of, I guess, bad deals and, I guess, potentially uninformed or bad gut decisions. I want to ask kind of how that's changed. I'm just flipping through your profile. I noticed this morning, and actually the tweet's doing very well, you kind of put out something about a real estate analyzer tool to help people kind of decide if a deal is good. Can you kind of speak to how you look at deals now a little bit, maybe a little bit more in depth, and what kind of that kind of, instead of going from your gut feeling, how making informed decisions is going to help people, scale up consistently?
Yeah, analyzing deals and investing in real estate, and Alan will probably attest to this. It's kind of like a mixture of art and science and math. So there's some hard, steady, fast things that you want to look at, but figuring out a rehab budget. Every single person listening to this, experienced or not, would go into a house and come up with a different rehab budget. So there's some art to it, there's some science to it, but the best way that I've figured out and that we've been doing is practicing over and over and trying like anything else. But the steady fast things, just trying to be as conservative as possible, and the non-negotiables, making them non-negotiable when you're trying to figure out how much to pay for a property. And again, thanks for the thought, Jack. I do have a calculator that I'm giving away that helps people analyze deals between rehabbing and rehab numbers and cash flow. You can figure out if the property is going to cash flow before you buy it. But you can look at, and if you are looking at what the property is going to be worth after it's fixed up, you're going to hopefully find 3 or 4 examples. Well, be conservative. If you see 310, 320, 305, and 300,000 for your ARV after fixed up, we'll go at 290 or 300. So take a little bit of that risk out of it. And if you think it's a $50,000 rehab budget all in, well, maybe make it 55 or 60,000. So just being a little bit more conservative on the front end of both ends of whatever formula you're using is huge, I think. And then not letting emotion get involved and just sticking to the numbers is big, because if you do that, you can screw up quite a bit. And I would assume most people on here, Alan included, that rehabs rarely come under budget. They rarely come in on budget. They usually go over budget. So if you're accounting for a lot of those errors ahead of time, you can really help mitigate any risk. And you might not buy as many because you're being a little more conservative in your offer, but not taking losses if you can't afford them, or big losses, is more important than being able to stick your flag in the ground at the end of the year saying you flipped 8 houses, but you lost money on 3. That's a bad year. If you flipped 5 really good ones, that's a much better year.
That's fantastic. Alan, I want to ask you about your podcast. What was kind of the inspiration for that? And if people listen to the podcast, like, what are you talking about on a by episode basis to kind of help people take their real estate game to the next level?
Yeah, sure. So it's actually Real Estate Maximalist. So I'm going all in as a maximalist on real estate. And so each week I bring in a different guest and discuss a different strategy to real estate. So back to my sort of mantra that there's a million ways to make $1 million in real estate. So, week to week, I try to present a different strategy. And I also have a second podcast called Stacking Deeds, launching March 7th, that I'm really excited about. And that's going to be a little bit more on the entertainment side and more of a beginner sort of podcast as well. So that's the sister show of Stacking Benjamins, which is a very popular personal finance podcast. And we're going to just make a spinoff that's strictly entertainment, light, easy, kind of dip your toe in the water into real estate. That's sort of the audience that we're aiming to attract on Stacking Deeds as well.
That's fantastic. I want to ask both of you. We'll start with Alan, and then we'll go to Sam. If you could go back before you bought your first property, in hindsight, with the knowledge you have today, what's some advice that you'd give yourself, and what is some advice that you give the people who are listening and looking to build a real estate portfolio?
I bought my first property on my 22nd birthday. I had no mentors. I knew nothing, no one in the real estate game. All I had were the books on my bookshelf. So surround yourself with people doing what you're doing. That would probably save me a lot of money, save me from a lot of mistakes, and really, if you ever talk to a real estate investor, they're the nicest people in the world. It's not like a cutthroat competition. They're so happy to share their experiences, so happy to help you. Now I look at someone when they're 21, 22, I see myself in them. And that's why I'm here and teaching. That's why I write books, is I want to, be that lifeline for the people who want to take action and control of their life. So to me, it's surrounding yourself. And Twitter is great for that. Instagram, Sam's got a very powerful Instagram account. Just take it all in. Don't be afraid to reach out. Join whatever masterminds, as many different masterminds you can. Go to all the free real estate investing networking groups that's in every single city. It's going to be the nicest people there. And if whatever question you have, someone's going to have an answer for you. If they don't, they're going to know 4 people that will have the answer for you. And that's just how real estate gets done, is it's networking and connections and probably helping each other out. So that would be the one thing I wish I had, 23 years ago when I first got into it.
Sam, go ahead.
Great stuff there, Alan. I'm going to have to agree with you on all of that. I think there's similar to what I've done at whatever level of success I've had. Every successful person I know, maybe not you, Alan, because 22 is pretty early, but every successful person I know wishes they started sooner, which I do too. I started at 26. If I would have started at, at 22 or 21, that would have been 2009 or 10. That would have been a great time to buy, right? But wishes they started earlier, but also they pay for some type of help. And I didn't do this at first. I had, whether it's the Missouri, the show me state, I need people to prove something to me before I spent money, or vanity or pride, but just thinking I could do it on my own. And, thinking that everybody who's charging for a course or a mentorship is a scammer, and they're just trying to get you the money. They're not going to provide value. Just that in itself was kind of my mindset. And the minute I paid to be around more successful people, I was like, blown away. I spend $100,000 a year now on being around smarter people than I am, but I get way more back from that. Just spending a few grand on something and having somebody show you the most efficient and effective path towards whatever you're trying to get. I mean, that saves you headache. It saves you time with your family. It saves you money. It saves you equity. It saves you so many things. The right, $4 or $5 grand spent on a mastermind or mentorship could save you hundreds of thousands of dollars in a short period of time. So I think just getting over that stigma of paying for help and paying for some type of coach or mentorship or anything, I think I would have liked to have changed going back, because even successful people pay for that. They have a life coach, or they have a marriage counselor, somebody that just helps them and gives them a different perspective, because everybody's the stories they tell themselves is not always real, and it's their own perspective. So getting some outside perspective and guidance would have helped me, I feel like, shoot off even more.
That's fantastic. Alan, do you still have a minute to answer a question?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, perfect. We do only have 5 minutes, so please keep your questions as abrupt as possible. The free thinker, go ahead, mate.
Yeah, I just wanted to get your, opinion on single family versus like 5 plexes and above moving into the new market. I just recently bought a single family again, end of December, but I'm thinking about transitioning out of single family and moving into more of a 5 plex and above at this point.
Let's go to Sam, because I know that Tia, but both of you guys can answer that. I know Tiki had a question for Alan, so we'll go Sam, then Alan to answer this question.
Yeah, I'll go quick here. I know Alan's got a hard stop here in a couple minutes. I got to run as well, but I'm actually creating a YouTube outline for single family versus multifamily pros and cons. So just quickly, single families are more liquid. There's more buyers for them. Not that you can't sell multifamily, but kind of some pros are you get in and out quickly. The tenant base, not always, but usually is a little bit easier to deal with. Some cons are you can't really control the value of single families. It's market dependent. And some pros of multifamilies, you can control the value. The value is based on the cap rate that we discussed earlier. The value is based on the income that you produce, and you can affect the income by rent and expenses. So you have a lot more control over multifamily values. They're a lot easier to scale, but the potential issues with multifamily, they're harder to fund. And I have a 32-unit apartment complex. 1 or 2 bad apples in there partying and keeping people up at night can really kind of ruin the vibe of a whole area. I got about 20 pros and cons. I don't go into them, but in general, those were my thoughts, and I'm interested to see Alan's thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, I was wondering more about like going into like kind of the new market, what your guys' thoughts were on whether you think that one is going to be better to invest in as, I don't know, the real estate, landscape changes.
Yeah, I would say one, I agree with everything Sam just said, but to me, I want you to get started in real estate investing. If I had my preference, multifamily, it's you just scale faster. But a lot of people hear that and then they don't invest because they can't find a multifamily in their house, in their town, or in their budget, or in the property type, or what class that they're looking for, and then they never start investing in real estate. So I would say search for whatever opportunity presents itself that sort of happens to you, and don't just pass because it's single family. But if you have 2 home runs, I would say defer to the multifamily.
Yeah, I think it's whatever you can get your hands on. Sorry to cut you off, Jack. And then I think as far as going forward, we have a huge lack of supply of single family and multifamily both. So I think they're both great to invest in. A lot of it's going to be market driven, and the South and the Southeast are the hottest parts of the country. That's where the extra demand is.
Fantastic, Alan. I know we're cutting it close. Do you have time for the question, or if not,
Yeah.
I can get that. Okay,
I
sure.
feel like this question's been hyped up so much. I'm excited to hear it at this point. Yeah.
We got to get to it.
Hey
TK,
guys, yeah, thanks
you
for
there?
letting me up. I appreciate it. I just want to say you guys are all a bunch of
No clue what TK said there.
I
Yeah,
can't tell
think-
if he was getting ready to troll us or pump us up. One of the two,
I
right?
know,
I thought he was.
that's why-
I thought he was going to say something awesome, or I couldn't tell if
I
he was
know.
going to troll us or pump us.
I know. I thought he was gonna be like, you guys are lying. Sometimes people come up and they're like, oh, I just want to say you guys are a bunch of fucking masterful people, and other times I want to say a bunch of fucking scammers. But I don't know what it was gonna be. But anyway, we'll close it off here. I think TK is having some mic issues. I know you had a question for Alan. Feel free to just DM him privately. I'm sure he can answer. DM Sam as well. I'm sure they can both help you out. I want to thank both of you for coming on, and I really, really, really appreciate you guys coming on. We'll definitely have to do it again sometime. I think we provided great value, and I just want to thank you guys. If you have anything else to say, feel free to take the mic and go, and then we'll cut it off. I got to go to volunteering.
Hey, Jack, thank you. It's been wonderful. Sam, great to meet you. I'm going to reach out offline, but I've been a big fan of yours for a while, so glad to have this opportunity. And thanks for everyone checking in and coming. And it's been a great hour, a great real estate talk. Appreciate it.
Yeah, same here, Alan. It was nice to meet you on here. I've seen your stuff and love your book. And yeah, we'll chat offline and we'll do this again sometimes. Thanks everybody for being on.
Awesome. Thank you both. And we'll probably do a lot more of these wealth spaces. So make sure you follow myself, Sam, and Alan for great advice. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
All right, I need a vote. Do you think TK was trolling us, or was he ready to tell us how awesome we are? I'm going to choose to believe he was ecstatic to learn about real estate. He just couldn't get the words out. This was a fun conversation. I loved hearing what Sam had to say, and Jack put together a great Q&A for us on Twitter Spaces, and I'm looking forward to having more. Be sure to follow me at Real Estate Maxi on all the socials. I'm most active on Twitter, and that's when you'll see me on the next Twitter Spaces. So I am going to be doing more of these, so you can come and ask your questions in real time. If you like this form of podcast episode, let me know. Leave me a review. Or if you found this helpful, please send this episode out to a friend and say, check out this awesome podcast with Alan Corey and Real Estate Maximalist. I thought you could learn a thing or two. If you want more information about the broke method to real estate investing or how to buy your first or next rental property in just 9 weeks, go to my website, realestatemaxi.com. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next week.